Okay, so we are going to get started now. Um, Thank you all for coming. This is the first of four YSEALI Seeds for the Future 2018 webinars. Today's webinar will be on constructing an application and a general overview of YSEALI Seeds for the Future 2018 program. Some of you may be familiar with YSEALI Seeds for the Future, and some of the stuff I may touch upon today may be information you already have, but I want to give a complete overview in this session of what the SEEDS program is and what you should consider in constructing an application. The YSEALI Seeds for the Future program, as a general background, started in 2013 and awards up to 15,000 US dollars to up to 20 different teams across ASEAN, with at least one team per country being represented. So you have a great opportunity here to make projects that really impact your local communities. So let's get going on what you should look for in having a presentation. And I will upload any documents or anything that I share today will be available to all. And one thing, if you have any questions or concerns, I'm going to put it in the chat window right now. But please email yseali@culturalvistas.org if you have any questions at any time. Okay, so we are going to open up a document. I will share this document with anyone who wants to know, but let's bring this full screen. And so this is a document on what you should consider when you prepare a proposal. Can everyone see this document? Okay. And is it large enough for you to be able to read it? Okay, great. So when you are preparing a proposal, here are certain things you should consider. This is general overview for any grant, and then we will move into the YSEALI Seeds for the Future 2017 program afterward. 2018, I apologize, 2018 program. So every grant is a competition. This makes sense, it's competitive. Last year there were 400 applications submitted for YSEALI Seeds for the Future, and only 20 projects were selected. This means that for this project, you have to put together a proposal that not only meets the criteria of the terms and selection process, but also be innovative. So what we're looking for are projects that really make an impact in your local communities. So for any grant proposal, you don't know how many people you're competing against, but you want to make sure your project stands out. And so the way projects are graded are on points. They predetermine things, whether certain things go towards skills, towards creativity, towards cost effectiveness, towards impact, towards sustainability. So you have to look into what these are and how this can be done for your project. And then remember, it's humans reading the proposals. You're not submitting it to a computer. So you need to make this proposal interesting to read and factual. You need to tell a clear story and put the reader in a frame of mind. So for example, if you are from Sulawesi in Indonesia, you have to tell the reader what the conditions like for, if you're doing an education project, what conditions like in Sulawesi are for schools. You can't assume that the reader knows everything. Now, you can assume that the reader has a general framework for certain topics and contexts and can search things on their own, but you can't assume all of this. Bonorangtan has just asked, does the project need to be implemented in a certain period of time? For all these questions, I'm going to get to all of these later in the session when we go over the YSEALI Seeds program specifically. But yes, there will be an answer to that question, so stick around. So your proposal needs to demonstrate how you are ready to implement the project. That means you have to tell in as much detail as possible what you've already done for this. You have to say, I've already reached out to these schools. They say they want me to come in if it's an education project. And then there are limits to the amount of information that you can share. You can really, you can only do as much as the proposal asks you to do. So when we get into the YSEALI Seeds for the Future project application process, we're going to go over that shortly. You'll see there are word limits and page limits. So make sure you do step 1 here, which we're moving on to, which is carefully read the outline for what you need to include in the proposal. You must address each of the questions asked, and then create a checklist for yourself of what are needed. These are going right off of Leandro's question. What are the prerequisites? Before you're submitting a proposal, go through the checklist and make sure you include all the required items. Kyron 10, I am going to share this document. We're going to put it on the website of YSEALISeeds.org after this session, so you'll be able to get it. And so while this all may sound basic, these questions that I'm answering right now and talking about, it is super important that you follow along on these, because if you don't answer a question or don't include required items, your proposal may not be competitive. If a proposal says you must include both an itemized budget and a budget narrative, that means you have to include both the general list of what you're spending your money on, but also you have to tell me a story of why you're spending money on those items. Both those things need to be included in your application, or you would lose points. And be careful for any questions about fonts or formats. So for the budget stuff, we are going to be having a second webinar. Our next webinar will be all on budget, so I won't get too far into that today. But just be wary that if the budget asks you for certain things, we're going to have to go into detail on that. So step 2, after you've written down all of the information that you need to know about how to craft a proposal, is making an outline. You see all the questions that they're asking. Consider this like writing a paper for one of your classes, an essay. Your proposal needs to flow in a logical way. You have an opportunity, if you're a visual person, to make it more helpful if you draw it out. You can explain how you got to the broad idea and the goals that you are addressing. And then one major thing is what are your deliverables? What are your outcomes? This will go towards your project's sustainability and scalability. These are certain things that you need to prove that you will be able to do in this project. For YSEALI Seeds for the Future, we will get to it shortly. However, the project will be from February 2018 until October 2018. That's only 10 months. It's a short amount of time, and you're going to have to get a lot done in that period. You're going to have to tell us the goals and the deliverables for that and what will come from your project. And you want this to be able to be seen by a regular person and them really to see that you've made an impact in the local community. Step 3. Once you define your goals and objectives, the RFP, or request for proposals, will typically outline a set of goals it expects you to achieve by offering the grant. We'll get into this for YSEALI Seeds for the Future very shortly, once we get onto the website and go over the FAQs. But make sure you address these goals. If your project doesn't adjust or doesn't meet these goals right now, you have to adjust your proposal. Otherwise, you're not going to get selected. You should make sure your RFP outline and your application does not force you to compromise on your organization's guiding principles and mission and vision statements. This is a general rule for any proposal that you may write. You don't want to compromise what you believe in as an organization or as a person. You guys, I hope, are trying to come into YSEALI Seeds for the Future because you want to make a positive impact in your local community. If you're applying to another proposal and they're telling you to do something differently, you may not want to apply for that project. Even though there's money there, you have to kind of look into it. So, and then when you're writing your proposal, there are different questions. Divide it into chunks, divide the sections. Especially if the application is electronic, like the YSEALI Seeds one, you can write different paragraphs at different times. Edit. Notice we have until November 15th, and we have 4 different webinars going on in that period. This is the first of 4. The first one is this general overview. The second one will be on budgeting and how to put together a budget. The third one will be on meeting team members from YSEALI Seeds for the Future 2017 program and hearing their story, what challenges they encountered, what they didn't foresee coming when they were making the proposal, and how their proposal is better now or their project actually turned out. And then the fourth one will be a general question and answer session the week of the proposal being due. The proposal is due Wednesday, November 15th. The last Q&A is on Monday the 13th. I would, if I were you and you haven't submitted an application yet, I wouldn't rush to submit the application. I would make sure to go through the budgeting workshop. I'd make sure to go through hearing from previous recipients of the YSEALI Seeds program and making your project as innovative and sustainable and new as possible. So there we have step 4. Now on to step 5. After you've written the proposal, this is about on November 13th or so, you reread it again and again. You want your proposal to be something that you have read over and over again. There aren't typos. You want it to be a professional. Our next webinar, for the people asking, for when we're talking about budgeting, will be exactly a week from today at this exact time. So next Wednesday, November 1st, you will have our budgeting session. This will give you a chance to really take what you learned today about the program and take the budgeting part to the next level. So once you've gone through it, read it over again. Is your evaluation process clear? Does your project flow? So evaluation can mean you have to give us numbers and figures. It's great to tell a story on people learning new skills or traits. However, there's also going to be the numbers aspect. How many people are you going to be training? How many people are going to be learning? These are critical information because those help us evaluate the scalability, the sustainability of your project. And then step 6, go through the checklist, make sure you've included all the required pieces, and then submit your proposal. So that is a general overview of what a proposal would be. Now we're going to go into it, and we're going to go, let me see if this works. So we are now on the YSEALI Seeds for the Future website. You get to here by typing in YSEALISeeds.org. So you get to this website, it brings you to the YSEALI Seeds for the Future website. Follow along here. So, YSEALI Seeds for the Future. Cultural Vistas and U.S. Mission to ASEAN are proud to announce YSEALI Seeds for the Future is accepting 2018 grant competition. Okay, so what is YSEALI Seeds for the Future? This is critical to understanding your proposal and putting it together. YSEALI Seeds for the Future is a small grants program for young leaders in Southeast Asia. It provides funding for the region's most promising young leaders to carry out projects that improve communities, countries, and the region across the program themes of civic engagement, education, economic growth, and sustainable development. So what is the takeaway here? The takeaway is your project should fall in line with one of those 4 YSEALI key themes: civic engagement, education, economic growth, and sustainable development. The other key theme is that these projects should improve their communities, countries, and the region. One thing we look for is your impact in being able to do something for your local community, but how if you could replicate it in another country or another part of the region. We also look for projects that are multi-country in nature. The entire YSEALI project and program is about creating and meshing a ASEAN identity together amongst YSEALI members. So this YSEALI Seeds for the Future program is sponsored by the U.S. Department of State and is funded through a grant from U.S. Mission to ASEAN. We don't need to read more right now. We're going to move down to the FAQ and go through this together. So Channy Mayer is asking civic engagement like rehabilitation projects. Is this still considerable? Yes. So civic engagement can mean a whole host of things. A rehabilitation project can fall under civic engagement for sure. It could also fall under education, possibly. It depends. So we're going to go into the FAQ. These are frequently asked questions. None of this is hiding. This is all available to you on the website, and you will be able to return to this at all times up until the deadline of November 15th. So who can submit an application? To submit a proposal, you must be a registered YSEALI member, a citizen of one of the 10 ASEAN member countries, be between the ages of 18 and 35, and address one of the key YSEALI themes. U.S. citizens are not eligible to apply. Your project can touch upon more than one of the YSEALI themes. It can be a mesh between YSEALI themes, but make sure it touches upon or at least has some impact within one of these themes. So make sure on the application you'll see, we're going to go through this, but you'll see that it asks you to choose which YSEALI theme you're under. This will help us and help you to really submit your proposal and see how it'll be graded. Does your project have to be in, or proposal, not your project, but your proposal have to be in English? Yes. Does your proposal have to affect more than one ASEAN country? No. However, the strongest proposals will offer solutions that can be replicated in more than one region. So if you have a great project that is highly localized for a certain area and involves an indigenous community, see if it could also affect an indigenous community in another country after you're finishing with your test run. This is a startup program or a initial seed funding for a project. Think of how you can grow afterwards and think big. The best ideas are ones that can really be replicated and do their project in multiple areas. Does my project need to have members from more than one ASEAN country? No. However, the strongest proposals, again, will encourage cross-border collaboration. Now, here's an important thing about the YSEALI Seeds for the Future program. Does our team need to list a project leader, a secretary, and treasurer at time of application? Yes. Not only will this make your proposal stronger, but it will help designate tasks. What does this mean? So, we have learned over the years in dealing with YSEALI that we have to have at least 3 different people working on a project to keep each other in check. If it's all on one person's shoulders, no matter how great that one person is, it becomes too much. These projects are a lot of work. So, I see there are a lot of questions right now. I will finish talking about this part of this question, of the delineation of tasks, and then I will get into the 3 questions that I have already. So, the reason we ask for a project leader, a secretary, and a treasurer is because these are very different tasks. Certain people are better with money and handling money and making sure receipts are kept. That person should probably be the treasurer. Certain people are very good at documenting and telling stories, sharing the information about your project. That person would likely be a good secretary. And then a project leader is someone who can motivate a team, who can keep a team together, encourage project morale, but also be an outward-facing voice for your team. And you can also be, so this person's a project leader. The project leader kind of coordinates all the efforts and steps up when anyone else doesn't have everything correct. So before I move on to the next question, I'm going to go into the questions from the audience right here submitted through the chat window. So will citizen education via blended learning fall under civic engagement or education? Which, for Chit's question, it can actually matter for whatever you decide. These aren't very strict guidelines, so whichever you feel your project is more applicable to, submit it under there. Serena is asking, if you have additional members, do we need to also upload their CV and their task? We'll get to this in the application process, but there are 5 additional pages you can submit to your proposal. In that section, you're able to upload additional CVs, additional project roles, but we're only asking for the 3 CVs of the 3 project leader, secretary, and treasurer at the time of application. Bunhorn is asking that their team only has 2 people. Can we apply? You can, however, this would kind of reflect poorly on your project because it doesn't bode well for project sustainability. My advice to you was you have 3 weeks now to try to find a 3rd project member or more project members. This would really help make sure that the project can really have sustainability and scalability after. The reason for this is because if one person goes down and for whatever reason they got sick or anything else, then it becomes a real problem. The next question is from Damhar, who asks, how about for student? Yes, students are allowed to apply for YSEALI Seeds for the future. We have projects this year from the 2017 cohort, which range from 18 to 35 in age range. There's projects that are for young leaders that are 18 years old, and then there are projects from mid-30s professionals. All of these are evaluated on their own merits and what they can provide to the general YSEALI community and their local communities. So we encourage everyone to submit an application. Calvin is asking, can the teams consist of YSEALI members from different countries? Yes, Calvin. This is actually encouraged. We want cross-border collaboration. We want collaboration from different countries. Now, will it be difficult to communicate between people at different countries, different communication levels? Certainly. However, this will also be a great opportunity for increasing your communication skills, increasing your project management skills, and providing a greater impact to your local communities. So certainly, Calvin, that is encouraged. And then this is the last question I'm going to take before I move on right now. Naz is saying our project is a 5-year project. Though there are key deliverables that can be measured between January and October, are we still eligible to apply given that our project will not end in October? Naz, you are certainly eligible to still apply. We want all of our projects to continue after the project window. What your goal here should be is proving why this project needs the YSEALI Seeds for the future funding, because otherwise we will see it as not focused for the YSEALI Seeds program, and you can apply to many different other places, and Seeds is not necessary for your project, if that makes sense. And lastly, Leandro asked how many members are allowed to apply on a team. And there is no maximum number, but we would like to advise a minimum number of 3. So we're going to move on to the next question because now we're getting to questions that are answered already. Is there a maximum or minimum number? Each team must have at least 3 members, a project leader, a secretary, and a treasurer. So while I said before that someone could apply as both a project leader and a secretary, that is highly discouraged. We want you to get additional people involved because that it shares the wealth of knowledge that your team may have and also the ability of your team. There's no maximum number, but you should only submit project resumes for project leaders and secretary and treasurer. If your team has more members, submit an additional document listing them. That's in your additional documents. And now we get into what makes a successful project proposal. It's something that is feasible, reproducible, and scalable, making a tangible difference in a local community and impacting at least one of the 4 YSEALI themes. I'm going to skip the how do I come up with a budget project because we're doing a webinar on that next Wednesday. And I encourage you all to come back on Wednesday next week for that webinar. These are all, and if you are unable to attend any webinar, I would like to just let you all know that all of these sessions are being recorded. They're being recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube for you all to be able to refer back to. Next, when will I know if my project was awarded funding? You will know in January 2018. Projects will be distributed from February 2018 through October. Funding will be dispersed. You'll receive 60% of your funds after a January kickoff workshop. I'll get into what the January kickoff workshop is shortly. Then after you submit your monthly reports and midterm report, you receive 35% of the funds. And then finally, you'll receive the last 5% of your funds after submitting your final report with project results. That won't be until November. Budget template we'll get into next week. The kickoff workshop. So after your team is selected, 2 members of your team from the leadership team preferably, so either secretary, project leader, or treasurer, 2 members of those will attend a kickoff workshop in Jakarta on January 18th and 19th. With all of that will be covered by the grant, so your travel and your hotel and your food during the workshop. But at this time, it will be a boot camp to improve your project plan and meet the fellow grant recipients. What is Cultural Vista's role? Cultural Vistas, being me, Aaron Eisenberg, at Cultural Vistas, and all of our staff, including Anna Basu, who is working on the video process and the social media for the project, and all of us at Cultural Vistas. Cultural Vistas is a cultural exchange nonprofit organization that has worked on 5 different YSEALI projects, will be your point of contact for the entire process and serve as your mentor for implementing the project. If you're selected, you're going to get to know me very well. Any questions you have on administration, budgeting, planning, we'll work with you on. Additionally, we're hosting these mentorship videos to assist you in different aspects of your project before, during, and after the project is completed. So I'm going to answer a few more questions before I get on to the last 4 things, and then we're going to go straight into a full Q&A. So Reski asked, I am planning on making a project with all ASEAN countries, but the team are from Indonesia and Malaysia. Is it Indonesia and Malaysia collaboration or all of ASEAN collaboration? For your project, it would probably be Indonesia and Malaysia collaboration, but you can detail in your project proposal why you will be doing it for all of ASEAN and how you will be doing it. Andrew asks, hi, our project is an annual camp that started in 2016. Are we eligible to apply? We are planning to open it to international participants. So for YSEALI Seeds for the future, it would be best if you make your project only open to ASEAN participants, because this project and program, as we've detailed, is really for creating an ASEAN identity and building up ASEAN capacity, building up local capacity within local communities across ASEAN. And so for that, we're going to need you, so you can apply to do a project that's already been done, but you have to show why the Seeds program will make that project innovative and new. Kailua asks, we are planning to do a regional workshop. Do we need to include airfare for each member and participant in the budget? Yes, but we will get into this next week. So come back or follow on the YouTube afterward next week. Reski asks, so happy to know I can rewatch the YouTube because I can't join on November 1st. Correct. So all of these will be available online after this. Theodore asks, hi Aaron, are you open to consultation regarding our project? So Because we are doing the selection process as well, we are only open to general questions about the projects before the application window. We are open to consulting after you are selected. However, we are not able to consult because that may give a team an unfair advantage. What I would advise you, Theodore, is to consult with your YSEALI coordinators in your local country, along with reaching out to teams that have received YSEALI grant Seeds for the Future grants before. We will do this during our third webinar, which will be a Q&A with previous YSEALI Seeds for the Future projects. And then you can also do this on your own. If you scroll down on the YSEALiSeeds.org page, you can get contact information for all the 2017 grant recipients. HLS is having a big budget for a project will make a project disadvantaged to get funds. As long as you delineate why you need that budget, you can apply for as much money as possible, up to the $15,000 US. Certain projects for 2017 received $15,000, certain projects received $8,000. You have to show why you need that project. Tree Wayuni is asking, is it allowed for scaling up projects from 2017 YSEALI Seeds for the Future? Hi Tree. So what you need to do is show why this would be innovative and new. Your project, so Tree, for those who don't know, was selected this year with one of her projects, won YSEALI Seeds for the Future 2017. She needs to prove in her application why it would be necessary to give them more funding, because the Seeds program is really about a kickoff funding. So it would have to be something new and innovative. Leandro asks, is there a limit for number of proposals teams to be approved? You should only do one proposal, make it your best proposal. Don't do as many as possible. And teams approved, there are up to 20 projects that will be funded. Channy, I won't get into your specific question. You can email yseali@culturalvistas.org. And so we're going to get into these next. So I'm going to wait for people to, I'm going to wait to get into the Q&A. I'm going to go through the last things right now and then go into the application directly so everyone can take a look at it. Can I submit more than one project proposal, which was the last question? No, you may only be listed on one YSEALI Seeds proposal. Can the project receive funding outside of YSEALI Seeds for the Future? Yes, you are encouraged to. This is something we want you to get as much funding as possible, and we'll work with you to help you. Out of the 2017 YSEALI Seeds for the Future programs, 11 have already received funding from outside sources to really scale and grow their project. And what is the maximum amount you can apply for? $15,000 US. So that is the questions about the application, but let's see what the application looks like. So here is the application. Again, all of this is on that website, YSEALiSeeds.org. The application deadline, November 15th. You're allowed to apply. Here are descriptions of roles. Look at them. Click here to see the example of 2017 projects. Here you'll fill out information about people on your team. This part you'll say the name of your project, the theme, the nation of your project, team members. Where will the project take place? Describe previous involvement with YSEALI. If you've done any YSEALI programs before, make sure to list it here. And city and region where this project will take place. Then comes the key part of the proposal, the support documents. Here, CVs of leadership teams, maximum 2 pages each. Make sure you follow instructions. Following instructions, as we saw in the first document, is crucial for getting accepted for a grant. Your project abstract. This is essentially an elevator pitch of what your project is. 100 words telling us what your project is and what it will do. Maximum 100 words. Keep this short. Project description. You have 1,000 words. 1,000 words is not that much. It's about 4 single pages of text to describe your project. These are short. This is a short proposal. 8 double-spaced pages. Make sure you keep it under 1,000 words and tell us what your project is, what your idea is. And then please upload your budget, which we'll go over next week, and then additional documents that help describe your project. This could be PowerPoint, handout, worksheet, charts, graphics, other things that will help clarify your project proposal. So what does this mean? You have 5 pages there. I encourage all of you to use the 5 pages because 1,000 words isn't that much. 5 pages is. You can really do a lot there. You can put in CVs or listing or organization chart of what you're proposing. So I'm going to go back now and bring up so now after that, I'm going to make this larger. And so we're going to go into the Q&A portion of this. And I'm going to go to the questions that we've had before. And then we have about 25 minutes for Q&A right now. And so I will answer all the questions in here in the order that they're presented. So, starting with Channy's question, having said my project rehabilitation, should I be general as to who my possible stakeholders are, or should I focus only on a community where I'll be putting the project in? You should try to put both in. Try to make your project as descriptive as possible, but also know who you're trying to impact. Impact is what we look for here. So what should be included in the project abstract or description? Is there a recommended structure or project elements that should be prioritized and put in the documents? Ryan, great question. So we've gone back and forth on this question over the year. We want you to be as creative as possible. And so for this, we give you as full liberty to make and freedom to make your choice and just put in your abstract and description what you think is best for your project. So for example, for the budget, we give you a template. For the abstract and your project description, we let you have free reign and there's no template. You can look online for essay templates or grant templates, but we want you to have full reign to make your project as how you would like to tell the story of your project. I hope that makes sense. The limit on budget request will be $15,000 US, Andrew. If you plan to start a project late in 2018, this might not be the best program for you. This project should begin in February 2018 with planning stages earlier. There will be mentoring sessions provided by the grant. That is what the kickoff workshop is in Jakarta, as well as throughout the time that you are having the grant. If you have questions, we are able to provide you with Cultural Vista's over 600 plus alumni network within YSEALI, but also the entire YSEALI community, the 110,000 member strong community. We will be able to connect you with people that can provide input and support on your questions. Milben asked, can we add members along the way? Certainly. The 3 should be from the start, but then along the way you may see that your project's growing. That is a great thing. We want you to add members at that point. If something is about disease awareness that affects women majority, does this fall under civic engagement? Certainly, Jaleel. Bunrong is asking, can we apply for a project in the idea stage? Certainly. You have to tell us how you're going to get that idea into action, but certainly we encourage you to apply at the idea stage. For the 100-word abstract, is it including the title of the abstract and a little information about the team, or 100 words for the abstract itself? So the title of the abstract you don't necessarily need to include because we have that information elsewhere, Resky. We will give you 100 words for the abstract itself. If you put title page or anything, or title header or anything, that won't be included, but 100 words for what you describe as your abstract. Lucas asks, can we include any images or illustrations on top of the 1,000 words in the project description document? Lucas, great question. This is what we would include in the additional document section. You have those 5 extra pages. Please use those for your images and illustrations. We want you to be as creative, but the project description we want to be 1,000 words. HL, where will the grant send it to if the person hasn't registered the project as a nonprofit foundation? HL, that's a wonderful question. So we'll talk about this next week in the budget template document, but you really need to have a treasurer. The reason for this is the treasurer needs to open up a bank account or have a bank account that is available to receive funds. We will transfer the funds for the project to the treasurer's bank account. Certain treasurers will have this in their personal bank account. Certain treasurers will have this in a new bank account that they set up for the project. But because of this, you need to be able to receive funds, and it doesn't necessarily need to be the nonprofit foundation or registered. The grant will send money to the treasurer, and the treasurer has to fill out documents signing away saying that they understand the responsibilities and tasks assigned to a treasurer. Than asks, can we upload a video as a supporting material for our project? Then that's a great question. So what I would suggest is including a YouTube link, uploading your project video to YouTube and putting that in your additional documents. M. Masra Ridwan asks, can't wait for the budgeting session. My team has already begun working on it and we're having difficulties. Great. So wait for the budgeting session next week, or wait for the YouTube after if you can't make it next week, and that will help. What should be included in the additional attachment in the application? Should be a log prem and activity plan. So Hora Adam is asking whether you should put in a work plan, what should be included in those additional 5 pages. And I think a lot of people are asking about this actually. So the 5 pages is your chance to showcase your project in any way that you think is best. A more feasible project will certainly be funded more. So a work plan showing how you're going to do it is certainly a great way to do this. If you can show that here's our delineation of tasks, here's our next 8-month plan, and here's how we're going to do it. If your project is a good project and you show that, it's very feasible. It could also be pictures, it could be graphs. If your project is talking about a rural community and you're talking about education in that community, you could put a picture in there and show the rural community and where you're helping. Make your project come to life. Your words can do that in your project proposal, but the 5 additional pages is really there about how you will show the project and showcase it. So Andrew's question is for a train the trainer-like project, where participants plan and implement projects after the activity. Post-program projects are certainly allowed to be included in the budget, and you have to plan for that. We'll go over that in the budget workshop next week. Kyron Tan's question is, how do you measure 5 pages? Is 3 PowerPage slides, 1 page handout, and 1 page of chart acceptable? Certainly. So 5 pages is 5 pages. A PowerPoint slide is one PowerPoint slide is equal to 1 page. Milburn's question is, our target are 4 countries in ASEAN. Do we need to have members from the target countries, or can we add them later? You can certainly add them later. However, you have to have a plan for how you're going to recruit them and how you're going to get those other people from those other countries. The reason being, it may be difficult to recruit. You may not have contacts in those countries. If you have members from all 4 countries, that shows that you have the ability to scale to those 4 countries. Can the project tackle multiple problems instead of one just challenge? Certainly. However, if you focus on multiple problems, you have to tell us how you're going to focus on multiple problems and how you're going to scale it to make it possible to tackle all of those challenges. Serena asks, I emphasized impacts and scalability. How do we describe our successes? Are listing outcomes enough, or do we need a method for actually measuring them, like figures, etc.? You should have goals. Listing outcomes is great, but show what your reach goals are, how you plan to get there, and what this will do. You can describe your successes in what you've done in the past and how that will lead to the future. You can also use traditional methodologies for measuring success. It's up to you in your proposal to be as innovative and feasible as possible for what you think is possible for your project. Ratna is asking about peatlands restoration. Can we apply for that? That would fall under sustainable development. There will not be any budget cuts to this program. YSEALI Seeds for the Future 2018 will go on and has the funding for Bunrung's question. Can non-YSEALI members be part of the project, especially if we need their knowledge, is Jaleel's question. Certainly. However, we encourage them to be YSEALI members. It's quite easy to sign up for YSEALI. I'm actually going to show you how to do that right now, so you all can, hold on, sorry. Let me find it. I apologize right now. I'm trying to find the chat window. Okay, have it back. I think the last chat window, sorry. The last 5 questions got deleted for me from the chat window, so if your question hasn't been answered yet, please re-ask your question in the chat window. I apologize for that. Okay. Sorry. I apologize, it just did the same thing again. So I will not be sharing right now the... Yes, sorry. If you have just asked a question, please ask it again. Those have been lost for me currently. So Lucas is asking in the project description, here we go. In the project description document, are we allowed only to present 1,000 words in essay paragraph form, or can we use bullet points and tables? It would be encouraged to do a mix of the two at most. Otherwise, stick to the 1,000 words essay paragraph form. Because the other teams are going to be doing essay paragraph form, and the traditional grant proposal will do essay paragraph form. You can list your goals in bullet points and tables, or your outcomes in bullet points and tables. However, for most of it, you should want it in the essay form. There will be mentoring sessions provided by this grant. The entire kickoff workshop, Mohammed, in Jakarta will be a mentoring session where we'll work with your team to make your project more sustainable, more scalable, and more feasible than even your original proposal. After that workshop in January, you will have a week to resubmit your proposal and resubmit your budget to make it a finalized version of that, from which you will then begin your project and receive your original funds. So certainly there will be mentoring provided. Other questions? So Khan just joined. What kind of information should be provided in the project abstract and description? Our project will involve technical systems, and how can we put that in the proposal. So luckily for you, this entire webinar will be available on YouTube after the project. After the session, it's being recorded currently. So you can follow along there. I don't want to get too much into it because we talked about what should be in an abstract and a description earlier. But with technical information and technical system, you should make sure that's in your description. COPSHI, will the selection be done only by the documents or will there be interviews? Great question, COPSHI. The selection will be done only by the documents submitted. That's why you have to tell your story there. You have to really, because we're not doing any interviews. There's too many people, too many applications, etc. here. So as a reason here, you need to do only the documents. If your project creates a product on copyrights issue after the project period ends, do we still need to maintain the YSEALI Cultural Vistas logo on our product? It is dependent. So Serena's question about copyright issues is something that we will come to in one of the later interviews, and you can also reach out, Serena, to the EcoFund Go project from this year, which is one of the selected teams, to see how they've managed the copyright. For the Seeds implementation period, you have to do the YSEALI Seed, Cultural Vista, YSEALI, U.S. State Department logos. Afterwards, you may say start it up with, but you will not need to use. Can we do an application for a project that has not been launched, but the team is ready to go and launch project in 2018? Certainly, Nee. HL asks, what advice would I give to a project leader at this stage? Make sure you have your team in order and have a project secretary and a project treasurer that you trust, I apologize, and that you realize and start sketching out a delineation of tasks and how you'll be able to do it over the next year. Right now, your project should be ending at about this time right now. You should want that project to make a real impact in your community. So let's sketch it out, think what you would want in a year from your project, and then try to work backwards in creating your application. Naz is asking, many previous projects seem to benefit wider community. Our 5-year project is a talent incubation, which is scalable in terms of our end users. However, at the start, we're only able to support 10 students. Quantity-wise, it is low, but quality-wise, it will be high. As long as you can scale upward and you remain quality high, it doesn't matter how low the quantity is as long as it can scale. And then only 2 team members will be required to attend the Jakarta workshop. We know people are busy. It's during the week. As a result, we're only having 2 team members attend. And so make sure that you are smart in who you send. It will be a boot camp. It'll be a workshop worth a lot of work. So it'll be 2 days of full sessions. Jalil says, I cannot let them register since they exceed the age limit. Oh, certainly, you can consult on anyone that is in your network to help you with the project. But the project team leader, the project treasurer, and the project secretary should certainly be people, YSEALI members. Santha asks, if we are working from different country, how the funding will be distributed as only one person will be treasurer? Great question, Santha. So, yes, the funding will be distributed to the treasurer. It is then on the treasurer to distribute it to the rest of the team. I know this sounds difficult. So this is, and there, you should put in your budget, which we'll go over next week, the distribution fees. Because transfer fees cost money, and you need to have that ready and thinking about in your project. Is it possible to have a project that will be done online, such as a monthly webinar? Andrew's question. Well, it is possible. We want real on-the-ground engagement, so you have to show why your project is meant to be only online. Oterleon is asking whether they need to specify the venue in the proposal. No, you don't need to specify if they're doing a workshop or something. No, you don't need to specify a venue. You need to specify a city or a location of where you want it to be. Bunrong is asking, where is the Eco Green grant I mentioned before? So if you go onto the YSEALI website, you can see all the previous programs from last year, and you can click through. There are about 5 eco-friendly green projects there, so I don't want to spend too much time on that. And then HL is asking, can you collaborate with other NGOs for the events? Certainly. You just have to say why you are in your project proposal. Nee's asking, so Nee, for any project that is wondering whether it should fall under civic engagement or education or sustainable development or economic growth, these are loose categories, so whichever one you feel your project fits most within, you can really put yours under there. Is the evaluation part, should this be included in the project description or additional materials? Great question from Dan. You can put it in either. If you feel you don't have enough words for the 1,000 to tell the whole story of your project, you can put it in the additional materials. If you feel you don't have enough pages in the additional pages and you need to put it in the 1,000 words, put it in the 1,000 words. Basically, see how your project proposal is going, and then from there, you will need to do it there. Hello is asking, do we need to specify every single place or what we want to do in the workshop? You should specify what you want to do in workshop. The more specific you are, the more likely you are to be succeeding. One of the projects this past year, Borneo Eco Warriors put on a 2-day workshop in Borneo on eco-awareness. In their proposal last year, they sketched out the entire 2-day workshop with sample speakers as their proposal. In doing this, we knew exactly what they were planning to put on, and as a result, they were able to be funded easier. Will the for the boot camp, Channy's asking, will the 2 team members shoulder? No, everything will be covered by the YSEALI Seeds for the Future grant for the people that attend the 2-day boot camp in Jakarta. Al-Haraz is asking, can we apply for outside funds? You are encouraged to apply for outside funds. Rezki is asking for 2 team leaders to go to Jakarta funded by cultural visitors. If the treasurer lives in Jakarta, can all of us join the kickoff workshop? Rezki, for your answer is yes. However, they will not be able to stay overnight at the hotel because there won't be rooms for them. But they can certainly join for the sessions. Bunrong is asking, can a for-profit social enterprise be eligible to apply? This would fall under economic development under the 4 YSEALI themes, and yes, can apply. So Santha is asking, can the whole project be used towards one end product? It can be, but it needs to be a persuasive argument for why that end product is necessary. Khan is asking, can we use tables, graph, or pictures, or does it need to be words only? So for a project description, it should be words only, and for the additional documents, you can use all those other. What if our project will be held in different locations? Is that okay? Certainly. One of the projects this year, which is Codathon, did different Codathon hackathons in different countries and different cities over different times. They had to list it all in their application. As long as you list in your application what you plan to do, that is okay. Yes, only the teams that are funded by YSEALI get to go to the kickoff workshop. Devita's question is, YSEALI members are anyone who has signed on and received the YSEALI emails. Correct. If you are a YSEALI member signed up on the US ASEAN website or on the YSEALI website and have signed up, you are a YSEALI member. And I'm only going to take a few more questions because we're reaching the hour point. So if you have any last questions, please get them in and I'm happy to answer them now. And just a reminder, we will be doing a budget template workshop next week at this exact time. I highly recommend all of you join for that. And the budget one will go into detail on what you need to include in your budget. It'll also really give you a full guideline of what is fundable for this YSEALI Seeds for the Future project and what is not. So certain things aren't able to be funded. For example, I'll give just one sneak peek. You can't put salary in your proposal. So as a result, we should probably stay tuned next week, and then you'll be able to attend and see that what you can put in and what you can't put in. Devita, and then for Devita's question, this is great. She missed the first 30 minutes of this webinar. Well, lucky for her, we're recording this webinar and we'll be putting it up to YouTube shortly and sharing with the YSEALI network as a way for you to see the entire webinar and understand all the questions and everything that went into here. And then lastly, do we take endorsements from influential figures in the field or letters of recommendation for NE? Yes, we could. However, it may not be the most efficient usage of the 5 pages. Thu's question is, can we ask for a fund for a survey before specifying our solution? You may, however, it may not also be the best use of funds. So you have to weigh these values and see if what you are proposing really is necessary, or what if the funds are best used for that, because we want to see impact. So if an initial survey is necessary, that may be okay. But if it is not the most efficient use of funds, you have to explain why it is necessary. And one last person is typing, and then I will sign off, and thank you all so much for joining. I hope this was helpful. And just a reminder, so I will go through the calendar right now of what we have. So our next webinar will be exactly this time next week, on Wednesday next week, the exact same time, same website and everything. We will upload this to YouTube, correct, Minlay? And so this Q&A it'll be the same format next week. We're going to do a budget template and then a Q&A session. So by joining these, you actually get a whole benefit of answering or getting your questions answered. The chat window that we have here on this site, unfortunately, is not uploadable to the YouTube, which is why I try to read the questions aloud and then answer them afterwards, rather than just answering the question in the order that they appear there. But so you being here, you get to see the questions from other people as well, beyond me just reading them aloud. We're going to do budget template next week with about 30 minutes, 40 minutes of budgeting, and then another 20, 25, 30 minutes of Q&A. And then the following week on November, so just so you guys have this, and this will all be shared, so don't worry. But on November 9th, at the exact same time again, we are going to be doing a virtual connect with YSEALI Seeds for the Future 2017 team members. That one will likely be a Google Hangout on YouTube, where we will be interviewing, or I will be interviewing, team members from the YSEALI Seeds for the Future 2017 project, and you can have your questions ready to go beforehand, asking them what it was like to put their proposal together, go to a kickoff workshop, and then really how they made their project turn their idea into action. And then lastly, on November 13th, 2 days before the deadline, I will be hosting a Q&A session. We're not sure if we're going to do this during Adobe Connect or we're going to do this over Google Hangout. It's still to be determined. But for that, Google Hangout or Facebook Live on the official YSEALI page. We're still deciding on that. However, that'll be final Q&A, and we'll do about an hour and a half. Any questions that you have before your final proposal is ready to submit, by November 15th, we will be doing that then. So I thank you all for your time today, and I hope this was helpful. And I look forward to seeing you guys next week at our budget workshop, webinar. And then I look forward to reading all of your great applications. And you will be able to find this on YouTube after this session. Thank you so much, and I hope you all have a great day. Bye-bye.